Hi friends, it's Marie at LivingFelt. I am so excited because today we are needle felting fantasy butterflies. We love this project. Needle felting fantasy butterflies has been a favorite on our channel, but today we're going to be sharing some up-to-date techniques and tips that will really take your butterflies to the next level. We will share with you a quick method for doing your image transfer. We'll go over some tips for needle felting the designs and getting all the shapes exactly where you want them. And we'll also look at some additional add-ons that are reinforcements and polishing of those beautiful butterflies. So no matter where they are, they're going to look fabulous and cheerful in their space. To make our beautiful butterflies, we need just a few supplies. We're going to be using wool felt, some wool batting, a needle felting mat, some cutting implements for paper and fabric, felting needles, fine and medium, a sewing needle, Aleene's glue, heat and bond, a little swatch of fabric, and some very strong sewing thread. I'm using polyester. I'll also be using a dry iron and our Ashford hand carders. For more details on any of the supplies, check out the link in the description below. These are some of the butterflies we've created, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with. You can grab the PDF. We include a base pattern and a few suggested design ideas for your wings. For my butterfly today, I've chosen colors from our Maori goodie bag, Cool Tones. And for the main inner part of the wings here, I've chosen these two colors. Neither really matches the color of the felt, but we're going to blend them together for a new color that's much closer to this fabric. If you're blending by hand, start with an even amount of each color. Divide the wool into thin layers, alternating the colors of the layers. Stack them together, pull and stack, pull and stack, pull and stack. Keep your hands far enough apart so that the fibers separate evenly and do not tear. Tearing will cause little pills. Blend until you're happy with the mix. If you have hand carders, there's chances you can get a more homogeneous blend of the two colors. So just like with hand blending, alternate the colors in little layers, little sections up the bed of the cards. Don't go all the way to the top. And then gradually with these Ashford hand cards, you kind of roll. So you're rolling the hand cards together to take fibers from one card onto the other. And then you can transfer the fiber from the right hand to the left manually or just by dragging it against the back of the teeth. So repeat this process until you have a nice blend. You can see that the hand blended one is not quite as homogeneous, whereas the hand carder one really mixes everything up. It's still nice to see some individualism between the two colors, but if you want them even more homogeneous, you can keep carding them. For this project, I like to transfer the shapes using the pattern cut out of cardstock and just a regular pencil. If your fabric is darker or different, we have another video for doing your design transfer to your background fabric, so you can check that out in the link above. From the pattern, choose the wing design that you want to use. It can be really helpful in transferring your wing pattern to the felt to cut out the major shapes. I find it easiest to build these butterflies from the background forward. So starting with our primary color blend, we're going to fill in the bottom part of each wing. Use a fine to a medium fine felting needle, so 38 triangle or finer. I like to start maybe at the point of the wing, reaching up to, this looks like a little heart, so reaching up to the arch of the heart. Just use a single layer of batting unless you're making a very dimensional butterfly, which means like puffy. Rather than build up bulk, Use your opposite hand to anchor down the fibers and tear off any excess along the edge. Be thin right around the edges and stay within the drawing or the outline, because we'll be going back and adding a trim and you want it to be all the same depth. Working with this thin layer of wool, it's very easy to use your felting needle to just guide the fibers where you want them to go, whether it's up to a rounded arch or down into a little point. Needle felt until the entire area is filled in and basically covered, and then go back with a cluster of fine needles or a multi-needle tool and compress all of the fibers until they're laying flat. Repeat this on both sets of wings, top and bottom. For the next step, I like to outline the dark areas and the overall trim of the wing with a darker fiber. I find it easiest to begin at a point with the edge of the fiber and then draft it out into a very narrow strip as you tack it down. This can be draft stage at this point, just so that you get all of the fiber following the arch and the curves that you like. When you reach a major point, like a dip or a peak in a heart, it can be easiest to tear off the fiber then there rather than try and bend it or curve it. It depends on how pointed you want it to be. Once you have your outlines basically in place, then go around and smooth them down. Since we're going to be cutting our wings out, it's really important to get these nice and flat and very secure to the background fabric. So repeat this on all 4 wings, top and bottom, until you have your outline and major dark areas filled in. Once all of the background colors of your wings and the perimeter is filled in, it's time for the final design touches. For our final designs, we are going to create an additional inside trim around what seems like a little heart, and you can just draft your fiber out as thin as possible. If your fine needle isn't grabbing onto your fiber well enough, then go up to a slightly coarser gauge. Again, anchor the fiber at a point, draft it out thinly, tack it as you go along, and then guide the fibers where you want them to go. When you want a very thick line, just put down more fiber. You don't need to pre-needle felt it or shape it before putting it on your design. For thin blended areas, pull off the batting into a very thin layer, anchor it at the point, and then pull off the fiber lengths and allow them to thin out and blend in with the background of your piece. If you needle felt these with a fine needle, you will avoid deep peaks and dots of fiber, and instead it will blend more naturally into the background. Do the same with adding any other accents, whether lighter or darker, over those in the same way. Blending with thin layers and a fine needle will give you a more blended end result. To make our dots, we pull off a tiny tuft of fiber, Start needle felting in the middle of what will be the dot. Basically tamp out the area of the circle and then twirl the fibers around the tip of your felting needle and poke them down. We added a little bit of purple on the outside of our wing. You could also do a blend of the purple and the blue. I did that on my first butterfly, but we'll layer this just the same, and that's by tearing off a very thin layer and tacking it down with our fine felting needle until it's blended. Once you've added all of the design elements to your wings that you like and you're happy with them, go back over the wings, fill in any light spots or colors that don't please you. Remove any additional fibers that stand out or refine any lines and shapes before cutting your wings out. Now's the time to go over and give them a look and make sure you have a really nice outline. Go over the entire wing and smooth everything down with your multi-needle tool or cluster of needles. In using the heat and bond on this project, I like to first apply it to the fabric. If your fabric has a directional print, keep that in mind as you align it with the wings. Use a hot, dry iron or follow the instructions on your product and hold the iron in place for as long as the instructions say. For more information on using the heat and bond in a project, check out the link in the info card above. Once the heat and bond is on the fabric, then we want to bond the fabric to the back of the wings. If you have freezer paper like we've used in the past, you can put that down. In this case, I put down some fabric as a barrier to keep any of the glue off of my mat. I also used the paper from the heat and bond to get my wings in the right place. And then I put the fabric on top. Hot dry iron for as many seconds as your product requires. Ours is about 8, and then allow it to cool. Once the heat and bond has cooled, you can cut out your wings. In truth, when I do this project at home, I do all 4 wings at once, and I'll do my very best to get all 4 wings onto one 5x5 quilt square. To shore up our wings and give them a really nice finish, we're going to give them an edge trim with a treatment that is 50% tacky glue and 50% water. I've shared this with y'all before. I just use a random old jar and I keep this mixture on hand all the time. I have my little glue pad down and just using my fingers to go around the edge of these wings with tacky glue. Now, if you don't have tacky glue, you can also use fray check. I'm just not very fond of the smell or the odor of a fray check. And honestly, you could go around this with just glue if you want as well. The idea is just to get those edges joined well, because you can't really go back and needle felt them. And if you have any hairy bits just along the edge, then just tack them down with this solution because it will dry clear. This will keep the edges from being too fuzzy, even though I know you needle felted a really good outline. Once you cut the fibers, it's different and some of those bonds break. If you didn't get your heat and bond all the way to the edge of your fabric, this will also keep your fabric from fraying over time. That may or may not be important depending on the activity that your little wings get, but if it's going to be a barrette or a brooch of any kind, then you really want to secure those down. Set them to dry, and it's a great time to work on our body. To needle felt the body, we're going to use solid color as the inner core. You can also use core wool, but for this project, we're saying you can just use the same fiber as part of the wing design. The most important thing is that it's needle felted very, very densely. To demonstrate, we're going to use about twice as much wool as we used in our actual butterfly. Just note the methods. We're stacking additional fiber on the right side of this strip of wool because this will be the head, and we're going to have less fiber towards the tail. Roll these fibers up very tightly with as little air as possible. And after a few rolls, go ahead and tack the wool into place with your felting needle. Fold over the edge that will be the head so it's slightly more bulky, and tuck and roll these fibers in as you go, needle felting along the length until you get the entire length rolled up. Use your medium or coarse felting needle to really form your shapes and get everything evenly tacked down. The fibers should be even across this tapered shape as you're needle felting them. You'll notice that we're needle felting right into the end, but also angling the needle as we needle into the body to run perpendicular with the length. This is really important for firming up the core and also shortening the body. If you just needle felt straight up and down, you might feel that your body's just getting skinnier. While you're needle felting, also note to only allow your needles to go as far as the middle of the mass or shape that you formed. If you push it all the way through, you're going to be working against yourself as you turn the shape around and needle felt from all sides. Use your firm needle felting pad to shape the tip and really guide those fibers into the point that you want. I like to use this cluster of fine 42 felting needles because it gradually compresses, but a slightly wider area than just using a single needle. Using a single coarse needle tends to plunge single points of fiber further in. So at this stage, give this little cluster a go. You'll be amazed at how firm you can make a shape with fine felting needles. These two body shapes were made the exact same way with two differences. This is about half the weight of this one. So play with that and find the size that works for your butterfly. This one is a solid color core, just like this one. And on the outside, I blended the blue and the purple together, just like we showed in the beginning for doing the background fibers. So you don't need to blend the entire dimension of the piece. You can just blend a lesser amount and use it as an outer coating. We're going to be attaching our wings to our body, so it's a good time while our wings are drying just to find that exact placement. This is how the butterfly will look with the smaller version of the body. So more emphasis on the wings and less emphasis on the body. And the wings are inserted right about here. So a little less of the body shows anyway. This might be a little more of a telling picture of what that would look like if you push the body up against the wings. If you chose to use a larger body, this is about how that would look. So this is almost a little more playful. The other thing you might think about while you're needle felting the body is, would you prefer one side to be flat and the other side rounded? Mine is rounded all the way around, but if you want to make it flat, do it now while this one is still a little squishy and could use a little more firming. So you could just do that with your coarse felting needles. Once you have your body ready, it should be very, very firm because we're going to be inserting the wings. To attach our wings to our body, we are going to be using needle and thread, and we'll be sewing the top wing onto the bottom wing, so that will be an anchor. And now we'll just have one wing set to attach to each side of the body. So you can find approximately where you're going to want to attach your wings and decide what that arrangement is. I like the bottom wing underneath the upper wing, and I'm going to secure it right about there with a few stitches. I like to stitch the two wings together at the very tip. I start with a nice knot and come up through the bottom wing and out the top. Go make a single stitch and go back through the stitch 2 or 3 times. Then run a cross stitch diagonal so that you anchor the wings in that position. We're using a very strong polyester thread. This will allow us to put maximum tension on the join by pulling without the thread breaking. Once you've done a few stitches that cross each other, now it's time to go through the body. Find the exact position to insert your wings on the body. I like mine to be right in the middle. Use your awl to make a hole that goes all the way through the body. I'm using a straight awl because I want the hole to be straight as opposed to wider at one end and more narrow at another. Using a sharp point scissors, make a couple of small snips to increase the size of the opening. But go very shallow here. Don't go all the way to the middle of the body and don't make it too big. Run your needle through this opening and pull very tightly so that the tips of the wings start to go into the opening that you made. Don't worry if they stick to the top or the bottom a little bit at this time. Just pass your needle through the other side of the body and then back again. Where you insert your needle into the wings will start to dictate how the wings are shaped as they lay on your butterfly. So play with this. I like to anchor the needle and thread on the bottom part of the wing and on the top part of the wing. I like to go through the top wing and the bottom wing. Make several passes through the body so that you have a very secure join. Once you've done this several times, you can use your tweezers or some other sharp object to poke the tips of the wings further into the body of your butterfly. Continue stitching until you're happy that they are secure and where you want them. Once you're satisfied, tie a knot and then run the thread through the body once more. Pull it tightly and cut it so that the thread disappears. Repeat on the second side. If you like, you can cover where the wings join to the body with a small patch of fiber, and this will help ease the transition and make it look more unified. One of the things I really like about sewing the wings to the body is how secure they are. It feels like a very solid join, and I know it will last. But additionally, the way you run the needle through the upper wing and the lower wing, whether the front or the back, can really dictate the wing shape. For this one, I wanted the wings to be mostly flat. Just notice that how the wings start to get shaped as you run that thread back and forth. For this set of wings, we are going for a little more of an offset, and that comes with not treating the top and the bottom wings evenly. So pull your threads, see how those wings are shaping up for you, and make them like you love them. And if you don't love them, you can always cut the threads and just start over. Another idea could be to have your butterfly perched on a flower or a fence post or even a doggy's nose and be looking at him from the profile. So you might play with the wings and their placement on the torso to get a different effect from the same process. Some final thoughts are ways that you might give your butterflies a job rather than just hanging around and look beautiful all the time, which they certainly can. You might turn them into a napkin ring or a placeholder at a special little birthday party. I like to use them on the back of my dollies, and that inspired me to put the fabric on the back of the wings so that when it shows from the opposite side, it still looks nice and clean. But you can also give them work to do. So I love these big jumbo clips, and you could glue one to the base of a clip like that. Make sure you leave the clasp part open. You could try something also like these little name badge clasps, and if you like, you could probably sew that on as well as glue it, and then you could just clip it to something. Maybe you want it to hang a particular part in the room, so not use it functionally like this all the time for taking on and off, but more of a permanent placement. You can clip things to it. We do have these clever little things in the shop. It's both a pin back and a jump ring for a necklace, but they are about 1 inch wide. So on this butterfly, they would need to be attached going up and down, and you can sew right through those little holes, and you can sew and glue as well. The last thing I brought are these bar pin magnets. We've shared these on multiple projects. They're very strong, and we like them because the magnets can be quite gentle if you use them on a refrigerator or filing cabinet or something. But also, if you don't want to put a pin in your clothing, try these bar pin magnets as well, because then you're not damaging the fabric of your favorite jacket or sweater. But the bar pins are quite large. So on this small body, it might be too large aesthetically for your taste, and you might just want to think about the size of the body for attaching it to this. And I would attach these things for sure with a really nice, strong glue. I don't know about you, but I just love butterflies. I love spending time in the garden, and every time they're fluttering around, I pull out my phone and try and capture them. But now you don't have to wait for the next live butterfly to fly by. You can create your very own, have it wherever you want it, and any color and design you can imagine. We hope you've had fun with this project, and if you needle felt a butterfly, please share it in our Facebook group, LivingFelt Friends. For more 2D needle felting fun, check out this next video right here.